Meeting. Okay, welcome to the September 2019 Traffic Commission meeting. The first meeting on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the June 2019 Commission meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item number 2 is a request by Sergeant Sampson, the Watertown Police Department, to take a confirmatory vote regarding the Commission's motion to restrict parking on both sides of Chestnut Street from Green Street to the property line of 5254 Chestnut Street. Sergeant Sampson.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chief. As you may recall, this was addressed by the Traffic Commission back in December of 2018. An error on my part, I didn't get the paperwork in a timely manner. So I'd just like a confirmatory vote on that, just so I can resubmit it to the town manager for consideration.
Okay, do we need a motion or just a vote?
Just a vote.
Just a vote. Could we get a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Sergeant. Okay, item number 3 is a request by Mr. Benjamin McCormick of 9 Hawthorne Street for the installation of a dead-end sign on Hawthorne Street at Pearl Street. Go ahead. You can come to the podium. Anyone coming up to the podium, just go to the podium and identify yourself, please.
Hi, Benjamin McCormick, 9 Hawthorne Street, and I know this isn't a super urgent matter, and I'm sure that, I don't know if it's going to be expensive or not. I'm sure there are other intersections in the neighborhoods that could use speed tables and such that would be more important, but I've just noticed, I believe since we're parallel to Summer Street, which is a commonly used cut through for people to avoid the square, it's one of the few straight shots through that neighborhood. I think people are looking for that or Palfrey, and they end up turning on our street instead. And it's just long enough that you can't quite tell that it's a dead end until you're halfway down the street. So I work from home, so I'm pretty aware of the traffic, which has, and it, I don't know, not quite a daily occurrence, but maybe every other day.
Okay.
There'll be a car I watch, I don't recognize, go up and turn around immediately and leave. So it would be a benefit to motorists and to the residents of the street. So,
Great, thank you.
thank you.
No, sir. The commission has addressed other requests like this before. We did this down at Maud Terrace at Summit Street back in December 2017. It seemed like a reasonable request.
Okay, any other comments?
I think it's informative.
Yep.
I would support it.
Yeah, so do I.
Have a motion?
I motion we have a dead-end sign put at the Hawthorne and Pearl.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, item number 4 is a request by Mr. Parvin Hakami of 8 California Park to restrict one parking space to handicap-only parking in front of 8 California Park. Is Parvin here?
That's a typo on my part,
Oh.
Chief. I apologize.
Good afternoon. My name is Parvin Hakimi, and I am a resident of 8 California Park for over 2.5 decades. And recently, actually about 6 months ago, I had some kind of health problem regarding my spine, which is a spine degeneration, and I cannot bend and I cannot walk. I only can walk like about 100 yards. And recently we have a lot of different drivers. They're coming from different area of the city, and they park in front of my my home. And because I have a driveway that is really about 5.5 feet ramp, and it's really hard to see it when you're going down. And it's very hard for me when I can see that all the time, every day, and day and night, and weeks, even months, the car is parked in there, and I cannot turn around and go to my parking lot. And because I am in and out about probably 10 times in a day, and it will be extremely difficult and painful for me if I go all the time to the garage, because I have to go 15 steps upstairs to first floor. But if I do have a space in front of my home, it will be only 6 steps that in front of the house, the door, the front porch. Then I will climb that area and go to my house. And then at the end of the day, which will be the last time that I will go either to hospitals or any aqua training and physical training, and then when I will come back for the rest of the day, then I will take my car to the garage. So my request is, I will appreciate if you give me a space for everybody. I mean, so one spot for disabled person that she or he can park in there.
Okay. Sarge?
Thank you, Chief. I spoke to Ms. Hakimi. She came to the police station approximately a month ago. We spoke about this issue, and certainly looking at her house, she does have a steep driveway into her garage area, and it seems like it would be a benefit to have a spot out in front of the house, considering her limited ability to walk.
Okay, any other comments? Do we have a motion?
A motion, we put a handicapped only parking spot in front of 8 California Park.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, item number 5 is a request by Miss Lucy Ashbane of Evans Street to reduce the days in which 1-hour parking restrictions apply to Monday through Friday only. Is anyone here to speak? Go ahead. Just identify yourself at the podium.
My name is Lucy Ashbayan, and I forgot to mention to you, Sergeant Sampson.
You're speaking to the microphone, a lot of things.
Okay. What I had wanted to do, and I did research, is there's a list of 1-hour parking and the list of streets, and it didn't state when the 1-hour parking started on Evans, and possibly the reason why. So we were just wondering, myself and a couple of people in the neighborhood, why there is 1-hour parking on our street. And I know it says Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 2 hours unless otherwise noted. So I also wanted to question people visiting on the weekends. You know, it is a residential, we're between Acton and Buick. I understand further down there is some commercial business, and the park, Bemis Park, is there. So we were just wondering if somebody could consider reviewing the 1-hour parking between Acton and Bemis. And it didn't mention anything about holidays in the restriction, so we wanted everybody to be on board with holiday parking as well. Would that be considered like a Sunday parking?
Okay.
Do you know?
I mean, typically, we're not enforcing
I know,
anything
I
on
know.
a holiday, just
We just have
quite
a,
frankly, so.
I think we have a problem with a new neighbor who
Okay.
wants it enforced.
The 1-hour parking?
The 1-hour parking, I've parked there over 18 years, never got a parking ticket, and I got
Okay.
a parking ticket.
Okay.
So I'm just investigating why
Okay.
it was put up in the beginning. Maybe it's no longer in use, the reason.
Okay.
There was no start date when I looked it up as when it was imposed. So if, you know, that's the reason I'm here.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
thank you.
Sergeant Sampson?
Thank you, Chief. I think this opens up a bigger question about the days and holidays and whatnot, not only for the 1-hour parking, but also our 2-hour limits and whatnot. I think it's difficult to just kind of pigeonhole the 1-hour parking where we have other restrictions in town. I don't know the history behind the 1-hour parking in the Bemis Park area on Evans Street, but...
Yeah, and I got to agree with that, too. When this came up, I wasn't aware of this either, so it must be something. Jerry, do you have any knowledge of the?
By the old one?
Yeah.
Actually, no, but I think that, all those streets are down in that area there too. We were trying to keep parking on the street, actually,
Yeah.
from a traffic calming point of view, but I think it's abuse over time. I can't recall exactly why it was imposed 1 hour.
Yeah.
But I was also never under the impression that it was 7 days a week. So,
Yeah. So it brings up an interesting point, and just thinking off the top of my head, I grew up and down in that neighborhood too, and I don't know if it had something to do with the park, or when Raytheon was down there, or something to that effect, that maybe people from Raytheon were parking there and going to work, and then trying to get out quicker. I'm gonna guess it might be something to that, so I think what you bring forward is legitimate. But echoing what Sergeant Sampson said, I think we just need to look into it a little bit more and then kind of make a change, because if we're going to make a change there, I think we need to look at the whole town. And it might be something to look at, for just the weekends in general. As far, so I think you bring a good point forward. So I think at this point, probably the best thing is just let us look into it a little bit more and look at everything in town. And then and Sergeant Sampson will surely get back to you. All right?
You're welcome.
Thanks very much. Okay, item number 6, request by Ms. Jane Holden of 24 Lincoln Street and Mr. Jason Merkin of 50 Lincoln Street to address cut-through traffic and speeding concerns on Lincoln Street. So, Jason? Okay.
Where am I? All right.
Who along with their friends walk Lincoln Street all day long, to school, from school.
Okay, if you're going to speak, you need to go to the podium.
All right. I am Jason Merkin of 50 Lincoln Street. This is Maya Merkin of 50 Lincoln Street. This is Lila Merkin of 50 Lincoln Street. Chief Lawn, Sergeant Sampson, members of the commission, thanks for being receptive to my inquiries and work and giving me time to speak here. I'm trying to make an unsafe situation safe for my kids, my neighbors' kids, and my neighbors' grandkids. I'd like to start by summarizing the situation. Lincoln Street is a densely settled street in East Watertown, with houses separated at times by only tens of feet. Small children under the age of 8, nearly a dozen or more, as well as a number of elderly neighbors live in many of these houses. The street connects to Spruce Street, Walnut Street, and Mount Auburn Street. From Walnut to Mount Auburn Street, it is straight. This area is sufficiently wide to allow for on-street parking on both sides, with at least one lane of travel between the parked cars. However, virtually every house on the street has a driveway, so there are often few to no cars parked on the street, producing a street that is at least 3 car widths wide. Such a wide street encourages drivers to speed. Additionally, the intersection of Mount Auburn and Walnut is controlled by a traffic light with a clear line of sight, so cars driving down Mount Auburn Street can see a red light, turn down Lincoln Street, and avoid the light to get onto Walnut Street. A large number of residents, my neighbors on Lincoln Street, have raised similar concerns about the number and speed of vehicles utilizing the street to avoid the light at the corner of Walnut and Mount Auburn. The town thankfully, graciously conducted a traffic study in response to evaluate our concerns. This is an analysis that I shared that I'm going to summarize here of some of the data resulting from that traffic study on Lincoln Street. Sergeant Sampson communicated the results of the study to the Lincoln Street residents recently, and he kindly provided me with the data. Sergeant Sampson, in his summary, did not seem concerned with the traffic or the speed on Lincoln Street. I am concerned. I found that there is a large and unreasonable surge of cars on this quiet residential street during rush hour. The rate of cars can be up to 3 to 5 to 8 times the daytime regular rate, the non-peak, during non-peak times. This is a street without even a painted line down the middle. I found the speed limit is also probably not appropriate for the street. The median limit during the day, when it's only residents driving, is 15 miles an hour. During rush hour, or sorry, during the day, the 85th percentile, that's my understanding, is usually used as the basis for speed limits, is 22 miles an hour. This would suggest that the 30 mile per hour speed limit is inappropriate. Massachusetts state law allows for the creation of safety zones with a 20 mile per hour speed limit. I think this would be a good first step. Additionally, I found that a large proportion of cars that speed on Lincoln Street do so during rush hour. They do this well above the speed traveled during non-rush hour times, speeds that can reach up to 40 miles an hour. Councilor Bays, I think we would agree that there was a car that was probably doing about 50 when she came out and observed it with me.
There were at least 2 cars speeding extremely.
Please take meaningful action to stop this speeding. This unsafe traffic occurs around 8 a.m. This is when I walk to school with my daughter. This is when my younger daughter will be walking to school in the future. The initial study conclusions mention that there hasn't been a traffic incident in the past 2 years. 2 years ago, as far as I know, when I moved onto the street 4 years ago, my 2 children were the only children on the street. Now we're up close to a dozen. So the safety over the recent history is not a good proxy for future conditions. Please help us make Lincoln Street safe. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Does anyone else want to speak? Okay.
One last thing. I'm also happy to provide the analysis code that I used to reanalyze the study if anyone would care to review it.
Okay.
And I have a PhD. I do data analysis and statistics in my day-to-day job, so this is something I'm very comfortable with.
The last time I was here, Officer Sampson, you provided a map. Does everyone know, when I say Little Lincoln, what we're referring to, as opposed to Lincoln? If maybe just pass that down. Lincoln bifurcates, and there's a Little Lincoln that is a very short strip, but the very downhill and a very quick access onto Walnut Street. Upper Lincoln curls up around, going east, and connects with Spruce Street. I'm Jane Holden. I live at 24 Lincoln Street. I've lived at this address for 43 years. And for many of these years, I knew only a handful of the neighbors. I knew only a handful of my neighbors. But for the last few years, nearly the entire street has come together and formed a friendly community, people who share interests and people who share concerns. The traffic issue that Jason spoke of just now is of immediate concern. In the face of the opening of Arsenal Yards, which will bring tremendous new traffic to Mount Auburn Street, Walnut Street, and hence Lincoln Street as a cut-through. And we all were informed recently of a big development at 85 Walnut Street, which is right around the corner from the base of Little Lincoln. This is slated to have 500-plus parking spaces for a high-rise building, high-rise garage. This will impact our street far worse than any of the statistics that Jason cited exist today. So the neighbors have tossed around some ideas of how to address this. One was closing Little Lincoln, and this would be immediately effective, solve the problem, and a few neighbors were in favor of this. The majority of neighbors felt that this would be a drastic change and inconvenience for many people, not to be able to go down Little Lincoln to access Arsenal and Walnut Street. There was also an idea floated that all of Lincoln Street could be made one way, emptying out onto Mount Auburn. That also would solve the problem, but also proved unpopular with a number of neighbors, another inconvenience. However, all the polled neighbors, and Abigail Houghton has done a great job, she's polled over 20 neighbors on a short little street, essentially one block street, and over 20 neighbors have said that they can accept and are in favor of 2 remedies that we come asking for today. One is speed bumps that would make cutting through Lincoln less expedient than waiting for the light at Walnut. Second would be adding a no left turn sign on Mount Auburn Street that would be effective no left turn during rush hour. This would have the added additional incentive of being able to communicate this information to Waze and other GPS phone systems, which now suggest turning left on Lincoln if you're coming down Mount Auburn Street and heading to Home Depot or heading to Arsenal. I've checked. It tells me to turn on Lincoln. And that would solve that problem also. The neighbors feel these 2 changes, with the priority being the speed bumps, would greatly ease the existing issue and would plan for the increased traffic that will inevitably head to Arsenal Yards with the 6 restaurants, the large grocery store, the bowling alley, possible movie theater, as well as the development right around the corner on Walnut Street. And finally, I would say this. In discussing these concerns with the person involved in town government, he said, "Jane, you're not going to get what you're asking for." And I said, "Why would you say that?" And he said, "Because it's just so much easier to say no, and it's much cheaper to say no." And I found that rather disheartening and hope that's not true. I hope that you will listen to us. I would remind everybody here that Lincoln Street was named after Lincoln, who said the wonderful words that government is for the people, and it's of the people, by the people, and for the people. And the people of Lincoln Street unanimously, practically unanimously, have asked for this to be remedied. Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak? Go ahead, sir.
Charles Kasparian, Jr., 44 Lincoln Street. So just my thoughts on the Lincoln Street situation. I've been a resident there for over 50 years. You know, clearly there is cut-through traffic through Lincoln Street, and there has been for many years. I live there. I said clearly there's been cut-through traffic on Lincoln Street now and in the past. I lived there as a child when Lewis and Shepherd was in business and Underwood, and the cars would come up, you know, for probably half an hour when the shift ended. And at the time, there was a restriction at the time to take a right onto a Little Lincoln coming up from Walnut between like 4 and 6, except for residents. That's not there anymore.
Okay.
But what I will say is that I think this is, my position is to leave things the way they are. And the reason I say that is because I think this sets bad precedent. I think when you look at Watertown as a whole across the entire town, I think everyone here, for the most part, will probably attest they use a lot of streets as cut-throughs. Me personally, I cut through Bailey Road. I drive in Mr. Asian's house every day. I cut through Bellevue. I cut up Common. So I oftentimes cut through Adams to get to School Street. By making Lincoln Street one way in any direction, by limiting turns in one direction, I think doesn't solve any traffic problems, okay? All it does is send traffic to a neighboring street, whether it's Spruce Street, whether it's Boylston Street, whether it's Walnut Street. So I would suggest that when we look at, traffic, we look at a comprehensive plan on how we improve our flow. Now, I would suspect that when we redo Mount Auburn Street, that the left-hand turn lane at Walnut Mount Auburn is going to be enhanced. I think that's probably a given, right? I know that there's going to be a light at Boylston Street, which I know for the residents of Spruce Street, that itself will probably create a problem for them coming out to Mount Auburn, and to limit them access to Lincoln, I think would cause even more undue stress to the residents of Spruce Street. I think in no particular order, I think it causes inconvenience to the residents. I think it causes potential risk to police and fire and, ambulance coming and going. I would also say that I don't think that it is unanimous. I know that, Jane mentioned it was. I know several residents that I've spoken to. You had your time. You can speak. Okay. So, okay. Let me.
Let him, he's at the podium.
So
can
you
go
had your
back.
time, Jane, so let me
We're
finish.
going to have order at the meeting, okay?
Okay.
One speaker at a time.
So I know that, making it one way or making it restricted in turn, I think that affects property values. I'm not sure most people don't want that. And again, I think it shifts traffic elsewhere. And so, and oh, by the way, and I haven't been privy, Sergeant Sampson, to the data from the traffic study, but I guess, relatively speaking, I'm not sure how that compares to other streets. Unto itself, I'm sure that, yeah, there's cut-through traffic, but relative to other streets, I'm sure there's similar cut-through traffic. And I don't know if that data's been normalized for resident traffic either, because I know that a lot of residents come and go throughout the day and in the morning, and I don't know if there's a way to, if that's being normalized for that. I think changing it would be disruptive. I think it's really just treating a symptom that's really more across the whole town, more than it is just to Lincoln Street. And the other comment that I also wanted to make is, I appreciate that the street does have young children. I think that's pretty clear. However, I don't think that age is a criteria for setting traffic, decisions. If that was the case, then we'd make several other streets in Watertown one-way or restricted or whatever it is. So I'm not quite sure, Sergeant Sampson or Chief Long, if that's considered normal to use age as a way to make decisions on traffic. So I think overall, I'd just like to say, I appreciate that there is cut-through traffic, but I would be opposed to any changes to Lincoln Street right now, and I would suggest we leave it the way it is. And hopefully with the changes to Mount Auburn Street, that's the way we improve traffic flow. I think changing it will only push traffic elsewhere, and it's not fair to the people on Franklin Street, Center Street, Walnut Street, Spruce Street, Boylston Street, and so on and so forth. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You have to, okay, we're going to have order, okay? If you want to speak, you can go back to the podium and speak. Just, that's all. At the podium, at the podium. All
when I
right,
said-
let's try this again. If
Sure.
you're going to speak,
Sorry.
you're going to speak at the podium. This is a meeting, okay? If you want to have a discussion outside the meeting, you can have that.
I agree
Go ahead.
with what was said by the last speaker, and that is that the neighbors rejected those ideas. We don't want one-way streets. We agree that that is not what we're asking for. And I do agree that I cut through Bellevue and I cut through Mr. Evasion's road, but I drive slowly when I do so.
Comes down my road, yeah.
You has a name other than that. But I drive slowly, and I'm sure Mr. Kasparian drives slowly. And all we're asking for is speed bumps so that people drive Lincoln Street slowly, not remembering that they're beating that light on Walnut and zooming down Little Lincoln. Unlike many other cut-through streets, there's no stopping at the top of Little Lincoln. You just zoom right down onto Walnut, and you're there, and you beat the light, and you're at work on time, as opposed to being at work a little later. So I'm totally in agreement with the last speaker. It's not fair. We're not asking traffic to reroute. We're not asking people to go up Spruce instead of Lincoln. But we're asking people who are cutting through these streets to limit their speed. And speed bumps are an effective way of doing that. Okay? Thank you.
Thank
I just
you.
wanted to clarify. There was no disagreement there.
And I just wanted to make one point, and I'm not here to single anybody out here, but there are residents on Lincoln Street of which are here that speed down Lincoln Street. So I think we just need to understand that that does exist over the residents as well. And, I know most of us, Jane, I know I drive very slow, and I know most of us do, but there are residents here that don't. I just want to make that point.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak?
Excuse me. So just to finish, I am not in favor of speed bumps. I think they're an inconvenience, and I think that you could make a case of putting speed bumps through every road in town. I don't think that solves the problem. I think it causes too much inconvenience for drivers.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? Ms. Bays?
Hi, I'm Counselor Caroline Bass, 110 Level Road. I stood out with Jason and Abigail one morning just to take a look at what I saw was going on. And I counted 33 cars that came by in less than an hour. And of those 33 cars, the thing that was really concerning to me was how many were speeding. It was about a third of them, and 2 of them were going by so quickly that you wanted to shout at them. It was truly dangerous. So I actually don't think that the idea, and I know that not all speed bumps are created equal. There are speed bumps that are flatter, there are speed bumps that are bigger. So if there was a speed bump that was gauged to a 20 mile per hour or 25 max, but 20 mile per hour would be what I would think is right for that road. Because it's not a long road, there are a lot of kids. I actually met numerous neighbors walking when I met her, when I was standing there. So I just think that you should look at it, and especially in particular because this is going to be, there's going to be more of a problem in this road once the Doble engineering site gets redone. You're going to see way more cut-through traffic. It's not just going to be what I just saw. So, thank you.
Go ahead, ma'am.
My name is Susan Doolittle. I live at 20 Lincoln Street, I've been kind of appalled by the speed of the cut-through cars, and I realize that what this gentleman said makes sense. We can't just not have traffic on the street, but if we had some speed bumps that would slow it down, I don't see how that would be an inconvenience to anybody, because we all need to be driving at a reasonable speed on that road. I walk my dog, turns out, during both rush hours every day, and I'm actually like, I'm frightened by this speed of the cars going by, and plus, it's a residential street. You're strolling, and somebody zips by. Your dog might wander over the, he's on a leash, but it feels really, it really feels unsafe, and it's very disruptive to the people that live on the street to have that level of speed. If you had people going through, even with the amount at 20 miles an hour, that's fine. That makes sense to do, but I'm really afraid that somebody's going to get hurt before we do something. Anyway, I just wanted to say that, because I am out there too and see what happens. And also, the people that are speeding by, if you ask them to slow down, they're like, they don't care. They are really out there to beat the light, get back in the other lane of traffic. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. Mr.
Thank you very much. My name is Dennis J. Duff. I live at 33 Spruce Street. I've only been there for 71 years. Yes, traffic has increased everywhere. It's not Lincoln, it's not Spruce, it's on every street as the town develops and more develops. I will say I feel very privileged, because unlike Mr. Orazian, I do have a street named after me. There's Duff Street up. Actually, I think it's a war cousin, but cousin from the war. But I think that obviously there's great concerns about speeding cars, and believe me, they fly down Spruce Street, and Spruce Street is a lot narrower than Lincoln Street, so it's extremely dangerous. One thing that bothers me is that when I hear the word speed bumps, plural, I don't know if I'm for a speed bump or not. It's sad that 500 cars will be added to the Doble Engineering site. I think that an investigation, I'm sure, if you look into the traffic in the area, but remember that when you do to one street, you cause problems in another. And for too many years in the past, the left hand of the town never knew what the right hand was doing. For instance, now, on Mount Auburn Street at Boylston, which in the day was called West Boylston, is now just Boylston, but at the Spruce Street end, it will be a traffic light. And with very poor sight lines coming out of Spruce Street, putting a traffic light there, the cars will queue up, and it'll be extremely tough to get out of Spruce. One of your learned colleagues suggested to me that I should go up the street, down Lincoln to Little Lincoln to catch the light on Walnut. So if you start fooling with one-ways and do-not enters and so forth and so on, as I said at one meeting, I'm never going to be able to get out of Spruce Street to come here to pay my water bill. But I think it's a real problem about speed in the neighborhoods, and I know many citizens have complained about this at different town meetings. So I have great sympathy for these people, because the last 5 or 6, 8 years, there have been a lot more children on Spruce Street, where 10 years ago, I don't think I could count 1 or 2 children on the Mount Auburn end of Spruce Street. Now there are a great number, and car speed down there. If you change Lincoln Street anyway, it's going to adversely affect Spruce Street, and I have grave concerns about that. However, as I know you well realize, the main concern is the safety of not only the citizens, but especially our littlest citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Abigail. Thank you for allowing us to speak. It actually was a little daunting to understand how to get here, and thank you, Sergeant Sampson, for all your communications and helping us move forward with this. So I live on that cut-through street, that little Lincoln, the connector. I call it like the connector to Walnut. It's a little street. There's only 2 houses on it, mine and my neighbor Jim's. And this sort of started for me being a new mom and being up at 5 in the morning and sitting outside in my yard and just watching what was going on and just seeing, as my neighbors have said, the amount of speed and cars utilizing, our street to bypass main roads. So, so I just started talking to some people, and we started communicating, and we all, although we have different opinions as to, or I should say most of us, have different opinions as to a solution we would like. There are some, such as Charlie, who don't. But most of us agree that something needs to happen, and I totally respect the opinions of, I don't remember your name. Dennis, thank you. And I appreciate your opinion, Charlie. However, I do want to say that, can you take him? Thanks. Oh. There we go. I do want to say that I walked up and down Lincoln Street, and I got signatures from every single house except for 2. One being you, Charlie, and one being another resident. There were 2 houses who wanted to sign but weren't available to be there for me, and there are 2 houses who currently don't have people living in them. But every other resident feels the way that I do, that there is something innately happening on Lincoln Street that is different than other streets that is causing a concern. So, okay, well, so the way, I think while I'm super excited to live in Watertown, I see it as a very exciting place. There's so much going on here. However, we are surrounded by Newton, Arlington, and Belmont. And all of people, such as the young families, are coming into Walnut for this exciting new opportunity to be here in Watertown. And that is good. That's at your feet. Okay, that's at your feet. That's something. I go on walks through Watertown in my stroller with my husband and my baby, and I agree, it's not just Lincoln Street. It can be scary walking around Watertown. The cars speed down the streets because everyone has a driveway, and people don't park on the streets. So I don't necessarily know what the solution is citywide or townwide. I certainly think that maybe an entire speed limit lowering would be helpful. I think 30 miles an hour as a city speed limit is very fast for the neighborhood communities that you are entitled to safeguard. For a street like Walnut or Mount Auburn or Arsenal, different scenario. But Lincoln Street is not Walnut. Lincoln Street is not Mount Auburn. It's not Arsenal. It's a neighborhood with 11 people. I moved here to have a neighborhood, to be with my neighbors, to walk on the street and feel safe, to not have a stroller and crossing the street and feeling like I have to walk backwards across the street because there's a car coming so fast. It's scary. You brush it off, but I've had people swear at me on the street. I'm on Lincoln Street every day walking up and down that street, and my child is crying because I'm trying to put them to sleep. And there's seasoned people, there's elderly, So I don't know what the solution is. I'm personally one of the people who wanted an immediately, let's put a rain garden on Little Lincoln and, but not everyone agrees, and that's fine, and I'm okay with that. But I'm telling you, there's something going on in Watertown, and it's at your hands. And it is a bigger issue than Lincoln, but right now we are asking you to take one step and to help with our street.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councilor Feltner.
Thank you, Chief Law and the Traffic Commission, and I really appreciate all the residents being here today. I'm Lisa Feltner, District B Town Councilor, and I just live a couple blocks as well from Lincoln. And just brief comments. I I know that I am constantly hearing concerns in District B about volumes. As you know, we've been looking at, could we lower the speed limit townwide? I also get lots of requests for speed bumps on a lot of streets, particularly the increase of cut-through traffic. So two things. One, I wonder about the town. I know other towns have potentially partnered with or have an agreement with or share information with the GPS apps and being able to manipulate some of those somewhat about what they suggest as first choices for alternatives off the main roads. So that might be a possibility. I don't know if that's maybe something the Traffic Commission does, or Town Council, or Development and Planning as part of the transportation segment of Community Development and Planning. I would say that I don't know what Public Works or the town engineer or you all might think about having during rush hour only no left turn on Auburn or other alternatives, because I know during peak hours is the particular problem that we're talking about, and that has been used on other streets, not just in Watertown, but Newton and other places versus a one-way all the time or speed bumps. And I don't recall traffic studies, or if we need to update any studies looking towards changes on Mount Auburn Street. So I don't know if there's something you could do now, or in conjunction with the changes coming to Mount Auburn Street, what staff might suggest. And lastly, I would say that it's, maybe we don't say age as a criteria for traffic, but we do use that. We use that for handicap. We use whether there's deaf or blind people of ability. So I wouldn't discount the fact of the demographic on the street. And yet we know that that could change too. But I constantly, just to confirm what you're hearing, that yes, speed is a concern. People want speed bumps, manipulating the apps, and curbs and sidewalks are just, you know, increasingly important. And it's great that people want to walk, but we tend to think children, elderly, but they're, again, people with disabilities, people have hip replacements, et cetera, and I know it's difficult because so many streets don't have curbs. So I'm here to confirm that I have a lot of empathy for everybody, to also let you know it is on other streets as well, and I'm hoping that the Traffic Commission could think of something either, you know, short-term or long-term solution as we look to our growing town and changing. So thank you so much for your service.
This is more than the Traffic Commission for that, Lisa, that's for sure. Any other speakers?
Sorry, I'd just like to hand it in.
Okay.
So I did walk around our street, and again, as I mentioned, out of the, I think, 20 plus houses, there's only 2 residents on the entire street that did not feel like there was something of concern, and that did not want some solution to happen.
Okay.
Everyone else felt unanimous about something.
Okay, thanks.
And then there's 2 houses that are under construction, so.
Any other speakers? Sergeant Sampson?
Thank you, Chief. I'll try to keep this brief. Certainly, I agree with a lot of what many of the residents said. There is definitely an increase in volume and speeds during peak hours of the day. This is not unique to Lincoln Street. This is as a traffic division, as the police department, we hear this all over town. I probably get 3 different calls a week from different streets, different side streets all over town that says the same thing. When you ask them when it's happening, they say mornings and afternoons. So, you know, I understand what you're saying, but it is not unique to Lincoln Street. You know, as far as safety zones and whatnot, this commission has talked about that at length, about the provisions of Chapter 218 of the Acts of 2016. We can't just pick one street and make it a safety zone without impacting the entire town. And that's been discussed at length and tabled by the commission at this time, because there's no proof that changing those speed limits in town has any real effect on the way people are driving. We're still having problems. Towns that have changed it to 25 miles per hour and created these safety zones are still having problems. They're having the same problems at the same speeds they were before they changed it. Certainly my biggest concern, today is the comments written in the summary by Mr. Merkin insinuating that the PD, or the Traffic Commission, waits for a fatality or some crisis to happen before they act. I think that's very inappropriate and it's irresponsible. The accusation that the town puts people at risk by doing nothing is certainly disrespectful, not only to me and the police department, but I feel it's disrespectful to this commission and all the entities that it's representing. The town, as far as I'm concerned, does a great job. There's some great projects going on. In each project they do, a lot of time and effort goes into traffic calming measures on those projects. So, as far as 85 Walnut Street, I know you guys had a neighborhood meeting recently. There is also on the town level, there's a site planning, site development meeting that goes on through the planning department. Unfortunately, Mr. Magoon's not here today, and I did explain to them, and I did put in my comments about the Walnut Street concerns in Lincoln Street and the cut-through traffic there, and I asked that they look at the percentage. I believe they're looking right now that approximately, off the top of my head, I think it was 44% of the cars they're expecting to go in from Walnut Street of all the trips generated. To me, that's too high. I think there may be ways to do something at that property and the way they design that property to encourage people to use Arsenal Street. One of the things I did put in my emails that I know everybody has seen is certainly we can put a speed feedback sign in that area just to increase awareness for the drivers coming down that street. But regardless of how you bend these statistics and whatnot, the speed limit legally is 30 miles per hour in a thickly settled area. So most of the vehicles are going under 30, even though they are elevated during peak hours. So we can put that down there. I think it's helpful. I think it's an educational tool. And certainly that's something we can get to very, very quickly. The one thing I would consider is, certainly staying as a neighborhood, staying in contact with planning about the development of 85 Walnut, because there may be some relief through there that might be faster and easier for you. I just don't see a public safety issue in that area.
Okay, thanks. Any other comments? Mr. Mee?
If I could bounce around a little bit, I agree with Sergeant Sampson, basically everything that he said. But to start with the Doble project, the Doble Engineering project, we've required them to access Arsenal Street, and we're trying to balance the traffic coming out of that site. And I agree with Sergeant Sampson as far as the percentage that was originally planned to come out to Walnut Street is too high, and the streets can't support it. So we've discussed with them modification and combination of driveways from the Doble and the VHB site, it's not going to affect traffic as much, but it controls the traffic and takes two driveways and blends them into one driveway, which is a better control method. But they are challenged with trying to get out to Arsenal Street. And Arsenal Street, very busy in itself. We're trying to look at, will a turning lane fit on Arsenal Street? All of those scenarios. But the point I'm trying to make out of it is the right traffic on the right road. The Doble project will have access to Arsenal Street, in my mind, and will have access to Walnut Street. But we need to balance appropriately that traffic and destination and where it's going. And people should take a look at where they're going and what the travel is going to be for what the safest route is for it. I do agree with the Waze. The new Waze issue there is coming up with, I was kind of amazed myself as the side streets it takes you down, and that, the other normal GPS didn't, and I think that's something we need to look at in the future. But going back to Mount Auburn Street design, that we're already under design with, one of the key facts of that project is the right traffic on the right road. We can't design Mount Auburn Street so that we're forcing traffic off onto Spruce Street, Lincoln Street, or too much even for that matter on the Walnut Street, the same way as Maplewood Street and all the side streets down the east end as well. So that, I think, is a tool that's at our hand right now, which we're already doing, and we can add a little emphasis to taking a look at Lincoln Street with respect to Little Lincoln Street in those situations as well. The suggestion for the left-hand turn off of Mount Auburn Street, I think, in first thought, needs a little investigation, but first thought might be a good idea, except for the fact that I'm not sure that how we would make that visible at this point sufficiently enough so that someone possibly could be cited if there was a left turn. So, maybe, maybe not. The other one that comes to mind right off the top of the head is maybe on Little Lincoln at Walnut, a no left turn there, so it defeats the purpose of the cut-through traffic going through, so that deals with one direction. But I think in general, everything's changing dramatically, and as was said before, I'm the old one here, you go back to the old days of all the businesses that were on at school, at Walnut, Dexter, in that area, and there was all this cut-through traffic, and then we've had a number of years where business declined, where that traffic wasn't there, and now we have, economic blast, that now we're dealing with it again. With respect to the speed, I think Sergeant Sampson's 100% correct. No matter how you manipulate the data, we're forced to deal with the 85th percentile. And the 85th percentile is a tool for traffic management that cites what the speed should be and what it is there. Talk about a lot of cut-through traffic. Everybody that buys gas pays a gas tax, and that gives you entitlement to use the road. So we're not supposed to just do traffic management to keep traffic off a road because we consider it's cut-through traffic. You deal with it from best practices in traffic safety management. Lastly, I agree, that it's an impact for you, and a number of other streets in town that you go there too, the perception of speed is always greater than you think it is, but we're all looking for lower speeds, and it's not the total solution. I think the Mount Auburn Street project is the best avenue to look at this. On the long term, and maybe in the short term, we take a look at it locally ourselves here and see what options there are to deal with that. My last statement is I kind of frown with the thought of this being hazardous. We have sidewalks, we have streets, we have posted speed limits. There's a number of control measures there. We can't control what every driver does, and it's not our option to. And it's already a shame that we have to put more and more devices in place within the roadways to keep drivers within the certain parameters that when you get your license, you're supposed to know these laws and what the speed limit is and what safe travel is.
Just got to go to the podium. Yeah.
Jerry, the speed bump issue, towns are very loath to do, our town has been very loath to do speed bumps. They're becoming very popular in Newton and Belmont, I see. Athena Health has them all through the Athena Health property now. Cars are bottoming out. As Carolyn said, there are different speed bumps. I don't understand why, if people are going at a reduced speed, at the right rate of speed, why do people say they're an inconvenience? If I were Mr. Eurasian, not a Eurasian road, I would be lobbying for a speed bump. If I were on these others, I don't know why we don't have speed bumps on all these quiet residential streets, so people have to drive slowly. I know you don't like them. Can you just explain why?
I'm not sure where you came up with that. I don't like them. I've
Where
installed-
did you get that we didn't like them? No
Yeah,
one said that.
I've-
You said that, but I don't
Years
know.
and years ago. I mean, I'm old.
I
Years
mean,
and years ago.
Let me take a crack at this one. And our thing is like, and I understand what everybody here said today, both sides of it. I get all of it, you know what I mean? And I live just over the line in Waltham, and I live in a cut-through street into a busy neighborhood. I had 3 young children, they're all growing up right now. If you still drive by my house right now, you're gonna see a sign that says, please slow down for kids playing, and my kids aren't playing out there anymore, okay? I've been through this, everything you're saying, I've
I'm
been
just
through.
asking.
Let me finish. I've had speed trailers out there, I've had everything. They just did my road over this week, so now it's gonna turn into a thing. My whole thing is like, when my kids were out front, I had to stay out front. It was part of it. And all I'm saying, around the corner, they put in speed bumps.
Okay.
On one street.
What
okay?
happened?
Waltham put in the speed bumps on a street that goes up into Watertown. And then the next thing, neighbors are complaining that the speed bump was in front of their house, and all they heard all night was ba-boom, ba-boom. What happened was, everybody that used to use that street started going up the next street, and that became the problem. So then they took the speed bumps out. I only share that story because I think what we have to look at too is that, okay, we might solve a problem here, but we're pushing the problem somewhere else. So
I hear that, but why wouldn't you want them everywhere? Is my question.
I mean, go ahead.
Why can't Spruce have a speed bump? Why can't Mr. Eurasian have a speed bump in front of his house? And
That would certainly impact the response of my vehicles to
wouldn't
get
it
to
really?
houses.
The
Yes, it
fire
would.
trucks cannot go over speed bumps?
We have chains that hang down, we have stuff underneath the speed bumps have damaged our trucks, our ambulance especially. And we would have a big problem if there was speed bumps on every street in town.
Well, Lincoln Street is a one-block street, so I think we're a
There's
good, we're a good
lot of one-block
candidate.
streets in
Right.
town, there's a lot of streets, we've heard this
Right.
complaint. You know, my mother lives near the middle school, cars go up her street pretty fast, and she deals with this every day, and there's a couple of speed humps at the bottom of her street. But, you know, it happens, we can't control drivers, like Mr. Mee said. They should know the laws, they should follow the laws, but they don't. And that's just my opinion.
If
I hear your
could.
opinion, and
Right,
that.
Mr. Mee has the floor.
First off, as far as not liking speed limit, that's incorrect. We have them on Waverly Ave, we have them on Church Street, we have them on Maplewood Street. We're in the process of putting them in front of the Cunniff School very shortly, a speed table. We're in the process of putting it on Whites Ave where the linear park, the old former railroad bed connects between the two of them. So I'm not sure where you come up with that we don't like speed bumps, but speed bumps is actually not the appropriate term. A speed bump is a very narrow and very dangerous. Speed table is 90% of the time what we try and do, which is in an intersection. Outside of that, what we use, like on Maplewood Street, is where you use speed humps, where they're much wider than, 18 inches or 12 inches.
Right,
where
I've
they're
seen
six-
those, yes.
If I could finish, where they're 6 and 8 feet long, and they work better. But speed bumps can be dangerous if they're not built right and if they're not used in the right place. You can look in other communities there where the speed bumps are very steep, and actually, you hit the speed bump in a certain direction, you tend to veer off to the sidewalk, hitting that speed bump without getting into it. But that's one thing that I'm always cautious for, because
Sure.
it defeats the purpose to put a speed bump in and have an accident created because of that. Aside from that, that's design, there's a number of things. There's drainage issues that need to be done with them too. There's actually control issues with respect to even just snow plowing operations, everything there too. So we look at them, each individual location specific. No, they should not be town-wide. No, they're not needed everywhere. There's problems that come along with them. So it's put the speed table or the speed hump in the right place for it. Is Lincoln Street the right place for it? Not to be decided right now. It needs that investigative work, and it needs the work based on the travel of the speed on the street, which we have the 85th percentile, and then on top of that, what's the volume of speed? I'm curious to take a look at the AM and the PM peaks increase from that and see, is there a simpler tool out to manage that deals with that in the first place? So there's a number of other traffic calming methods that could be used as well that doesn't have to equal out to be a speed bump. But I am no means against speed bumps. They need to be put in the right place with some investigative work done.
Right, and I would just say the neighbors, when we say speed bumps, we're just being archaic. It sounds like these speed tables
I'm
are
sorry.
what we really would want.
I can't
So
get
thank you for educating us about the terminology. We're not saying speed bumps, we're saying whatever would calm traffic down, and these speed tables that you speak of sound like one of those would do the job. Thank you.
Sure.
So I'd like to ask maybe Robert Quinn or Michael or Sergeant Sampson. So when we talk about streets, generally there's a beginning and an end to the street. Like Spruce has, you enter Spruce, and then there's an end, where if you look at the map, Little Lincoln is like a star. So it's not, I think we really need to conceptualize the street differently. It is not a street that has a beginning and an end where you can come in from one direction, exit the other, or vice versa. If Lincoln Street was like that, where you could come down Spruce and exit Mount Auburn, or come in Mount Auburn and exit Spruce, fine. I think that's great. That's what a street is. But Lincoln is different because of that connection. And so I'm curious, is there a reason for that connection? What is the purpose? Because to me, I only see one thing happening because of it. So I'm curious from any of your standpoint, is there a data reason? Is there a safety reason? Is there a reason?
That Little Lincoln is there?
Yeah, that it's there. Why is it there?
I don't know why it's
the
there, but
beginning-
I know there's a beginning and end of every street, but some streets have streets off the beginning and the end as well,
But
to
they-
get to another area,
Right, but
So I
it's
guess
like a-
I'm just not I don't,
Yeah, but it's its own street.
yeah, I mean, I've been here for 30 years, and that's
They're
been
all
here
named
for 30
Lincoln
years,
Street.
so I don't have the answer to why they put Little Lincoln there.
But I'm asking you, is there a reason for it? Like, is there a safety reason, like to access the actual Lincoln Street?
Street was designed well before I was on the fire department, and that's the way it's been for my 32
so
years.
I
don't
don't
know
think
who
we have that
designed it
answer.
way.
That's,
But
Yeah.
it was designed at one point, and that's the way it's been my entire career. I can't tell you why they designed it that way, or if there was a reason for it. I
Okay.
don't know that answer.
I just wasn't sure if it had to do with like trucks, you know, like your fire trucks and accessing actually Lincoln Street.
And let me, I just don't want you to leave here thinking that, you know, we don't care about this issue up there.
Yeah.
We do. But I guess as a traffic commission board, we have to think of the whole town. So this problem, what you think on Lincoln Street, we hear it, like Sergeant Sampson said, 3 or 4 times a week. It's in our roll call, because this is the issue. There's so much more traffic now. Everybody's cutting down streets because of the traffic. At rush hour, it's not just Watertown, it's Waltham, it's Newton, it's everywhere. So I'm just afraid of making a decision here that is going to affect the next street and the next street. So I'm all for figuring out something here. You know, this little Lincoln, I don't know. Somebody wrote one of the emails, close it off. Like, I think that's above our purview here, like to close off a street. You know, other things, if you made Lincoln Street going up a one-way, that you couldn't go that way. I don't know. Is there different things thinking? I'm just hesitant of making a decision. And based on emotion, there's a lot of emotion in this room. There's conflicting emotion on just emotion, you know, because we got to look at, you know, I take exception to Mr. Merkin's emails as well, and I spoke to him about that. All right? I think Sergeant Sampson does his due diligence in doing the work, and we got to base it off that 85 percentile, and that's what we do. It's not personal, right? It's like, it's what we do, because we're here, and we're traffic commission once a month. But what the traffic commission see is that it's every day for us,
Sure,
okay?
of course.
We have 4 police officers on the street some days, okay? We can't be on every street, but we get, why aren't you on our street? And we set up the survey. So we're out there doing as hard as and as much as we can every day. But I'm just afraid of making a decision on Lincoln Street that's going to affect all the other streets around it. Whereas, and I'm not saying this is a decision, I'm just saying I think looking at Mount Auburn Street design, can we take all this? But I'm not even talking about like just Lincoln Street, okay? So if we did something on Lincoln Street, it's going to have an effect on Spruce Street, but how do we do something that's going to stop for all those streets or calm it for those streets, you know? I mean, you guys threw a lot at us today, all right? And you even said it, I quoted, I don't have the solution, right? And there's different, you know, some people want a speed bump, some people want to shut Little Lincoln, some don't want it. And I just don't want this to become a thing where somebody's going to be upset when, you know, at the end of the day,
Someone's always going to be upset.
I understand that, but, you know, when we do, what we use is our data to make changes. It doesn't meet that data. And that doesn't mean, and I told you my story because I'm with you. I had three.
No, I'm just
I had 3 kids. No, but I had 3 kids, and I went through the same things. But, and to this day, you know, I got 4 little kids next door to me right now, and you just can't, I can't let them out in front of the house by themselves. I can't do that. You know what I mean? And that's, you know, that's just, but I know from my 30 years experience, there's not a lot I can do about that. Like, we can change the speed limit to 10 miles per hour, right?
Right. I
We
know.
wouldn't be in business if everybody said, okay, it's 10 miles per hour right now, I'm going to do 10 miles per hour, all right? That's the point. And I don't want to just put in a sign and put in a speed bump and do this and think that everything's safe there. Because in essence, you know, if we had everybody obey, then me and Sergeant Sampson would be
Have a job.
doing something else right now. So, I mean, I'll open up to more people. I just want to share that. Like, I just don't want to jump into something, but, you know, we're here to work with you. We're here to work with everybody, but I just don't want to do something today that's going to affect the next street and everybody else. So I think it's a good time while we're doing the Smart Auburn Street design to look at all this. Like, look at that little Lincoln Street. I have no
just
idea why it's there. You know what I mean?
You can come and sit
You know?
right outside my house and take a look at it.
You know,
And
but
then-
like if we, you know, let's just throw this out there, we made, you know, do not enter from Lincoln Street off Walnut Street. You
Yeah.
can't come up there. Like, that's going to affect, somebody's going to be here the next month saying, why'd you do that? You know what I mean? So I don't want, yeah, so I just want to I don't want to rush into anything, but I want you to know that we've heard everybody, we understand it, you know, because we deal with this every single day. The Traffic Commission only gets it once a month, but we get it every single day, so.
Okay, well, thank you.
That's just my thing. I just want to open up to the rest of the board first, if anyone has anything on it. If not, you know, I'm happy to hear anyone else. You guys good? Go ahead.
Oh.
Good.
I'm Alfonso, Abigail's husband. one of the expats out of Cambridge, of the many that are coming in with the young children. So appreciate you welcoming us and all the neighbors. I really appreciate that. I think a few times it was mentioned the idea of a study, and I don't know what towns do in this situation. I have no idea. But do towns that are growing more densely in the dense fashion, do they actually study the effects on all of the streets? And has there been a holistic study? And that's what you kind of talked about a little bit in talking with Abigail. And I don't know if that's something that you do. Do you hire consultants for that type of thing? And how that can be resolved? Because it seems like if you're getting multiple questions from multiple streets, then the citizens are saying, hey, maybe a study should be done. And maybe there needs to be there really does need to be a holistic solution. So outside of Lincoln Street, and that I live on the corner of Little Lincoln Street, I mean, should a consultant come in and say, hey, advise us on how to...
I just think that's the whole Boston metro area right now. I think
that's the whole
all
Boston,
the cities and towns
yeah.
are looking at this. This is like, this is a major, major issue when you live in the city, and it's getting worse and worse, and we get that, what I mean? And honestly, and as the police chief and not the traffic commission chairman, it's very difficult for us to keep up with it at the police department, you know what I mean? And everybody expects that their street should be first priority, and we do our best. I mean, we just got one officer back. We lost 8 officers years ago, and we're trying to get back to where we were. And just the workload increases for us, and we're doing our best to do that. But, I just say, like Jerry might, I know that we have traffic engineers and things, but I live in Waltham, and I know that the city of Waltham is looking at the same issue. How do you look at traffic? But, it's just more and more cars on the roads these days, and
so
I don't think no one's got the answer yet. I think
are
if
there
we had the
solutions?
answer,
Are there specific consultants who come in and has anybody asked, or has anybody...
Mr. Me.
A number of years ago, the town hired a transportation planner. To address that, to start to that. Every single project that comes in for development, we usually require a traffic impact analysis and study with that as well. And the planning and the zoning department have a lot going on. And we do a lot of town-wide studies. Have we done one exactly within the last 5 years for traffic? No, but that is coming next. We've been dealing with water and sewer and drain and all those things. So it does happen.
Yeah, I mean, and because it seems like it's, it's a fairly suburban town, except for Arsenal and Mount Auburn. It's pretty much a suburban town, other than Arsenal and Mount Auburn. So, and that makes it more difficult for.
And that being said, I said, we did everything that was said here today. We get the same from the west end of town too. On everything that abuts the main streets. Like anyone that's on a main street at 5 o'clock are cutting down side streets. I have 5 nieces and nephews that live on a street that they cut up and down every day too. And it's a problem. It's a major problem, and we don't have all the solutions yet. But I think together we got to work to try to find them. You know what I mean? And like I said, we are discussing reducing the speed limit. We've talked about it here at the Traffic Commission. Like Boston's done it and Belmont's done it, and they went from 30 to 25. And I don't think the data is really showing that it's had an effect. And that's why we were kind of hesitant in doing that. I think Marty Welsh already came out and said he wants to go to 20 now. So I think we were just kind of watching that, and like I said, if that's the case, I just don't think that's the total answer to it. But, if you got one person to do that, I guess it's going to help, but it's just, this is our society right now. Everybody's in a rush. Everybody's, trying to get to the next place, and it's a very challenging subject right now, so. But I think we need to, still all get together. And it's not just the Traffic Commission, it's everybody in town here that we need to work together and try to come up with a solution. But anyone else have any comments?
Thank you.
Sure.
Hi, Charles Casparian Jr. again, 44 Lincoln Street. So I think everyone sort of knows, for the most part, we have a very good economy right now. I think we're pretty much statistically at full employment, I think, across the state. So, to your earlier point, traffic is significant across pretty much all of Greater Boston. I commute 30 miles north every day, and I can tell you firsthand, cutting through towns like, Arlington and Belmont and Woburn, depending on which way I go, I cut down side streets through all those towns. I think, I think Belmont is significantly worse than our traffic problem. You try getting through, coming down Belmont Hill through rush hour through Belmont Center. I think the real issue is that I think given the way this area, this town has been developed historically, there's not any more space for new roads or widening lanes or creating more options for, handling more volume of traffic. I think it's actually the opposite. I think, we have more development in Watertown. I think, we've all come, for the most part, we need to accept that that's really a reality here, right? And our town is not the same as it was, 10, 20, 30 years ago, right? Things change, and we need to embrace change, right? So as part of that, I think, we need to be a little bit more open-minded in terms of accepting the fact that we have more traffic in town. I think everyone that commutes to work every day, I know I can speak for myself, everyone's trying to get home, right? Everyone's trying to get home as quickly as they can. People try to take, the best route home to save a few minutes here or there. But I don't think restricting, even as you said, Superintendent Me, no left-hand turn onto Walnut or no left-hand, to me, I think that's just going to create significant issues for just, in other areas. So to me, because if you start to do that and you make that precedent, there's other streets that are going to want to do the same thing. And before we know it, we've made a tough situation even more problematic for the town. I just think that we just need to, in a lot of ways, accept that there's significant amount of traffic coming through this town, and do our best to deal with it. And I know, as you mentioned, Sergeant in Chief, that there are ways to, hopefully ensure that we get people to slow down, and hopefully that will happen. And I don't know if, and I'm sure, your traffic team, I'm sure, I see them out in the morning, they do a terrific job. And I know it's not just Lincoln Street that they need to cover, it's the entire town, and, but that's pretty much all I had, so thank you for listening.
Thank you. Mr. Duff.
As to why Little Lincoln exists, my guess would be that it was a path from the old days. I mean, Spruce Street was a farm street. It was orchards, there 2 farmhouses sit on it. And my guess was that it was just a path through and then eventually got paved. But closing Little Lincoln, when you think about that, first of all, there's a gentleman whose garage and parking faces Little Lincoln. Now you've deprived him of off-street parking as well. And I know yours does too. And then you want the street closed, and then you'll be up here.
Let's stick
Then
to
the people will be up here saying, let's get rid of the parking ban because now I have no off, I only have 1 space off-street parking.
Right.
But I think you've got the gist of everything. You change one thing, it affects the others. And all I'm saying is, look at the Mount Auburn Street, what affects Spruce Street, how it affects Lincoln, and vice versa.
All right.
If you put in no left into Lincoln, are they going to come up Spruce?
Yep.
So
That's what
it's
I
a
said,
tough, it's a tough situation.
All right.
And sadly, it's all part of the urban sprawl. I've been fighting 50 years to keep the town as the town of Watertown, but in the last 20 years, we've lost that.
Okay.
We've lost that feel. We're now part of the urban sprawl. I made a comment to an architect at the planning board saying, yeah, the only way you know when you're in Watertown, when you arrive at Logan Airport, get off the plane and drive to Watertown, the only way you know you're going from Boston to Cambridge to Watertown is when you see a police car.
All right, thanks. Okay, any other comments? All right, like I said, the criteria that we used, it doesn't meet it, but that doesn't mean the conversation's going to end here. I think the best thing, and I don't know if everyone agrees, is that we take a look at that whole area down there and let it become part of that Mount Auburn Street design. Like I said, I don't want to do something that's going to affect somebody else, and the next thing, and then they're going to come in, and then we're going to go to the next street. I go, let's take a look at it. In the meantime, I'm with you, all right? I'm going to work with Sergeant Sampson, and we did look at those peak times, although they don't, there is a lot of cars going on, like every street, and the speeds do increase, like every street, but we'll try to make a priority to spend some time up there too, okay, during those peak things while we try to figure all this out. And then Dave mentioned putting the sign up there. That does help. I had it in front of my house, and at like 2 o'clock in the morning, I would hear the cars flying to see how fast I could get it to, so that doesn't, but we fixed that it doesn't, in Watertown, it doesn't register that high, so. But, like I said, I appreciate everyone coming in. We totally understand what everybody says. I think everybody made great points here today. But from our perspective, we gotta do one thing for every street in town. So I don't think this is like an easy fix right this second, but it's up on our radar, and like I said, maybe it's time for us to really look at that, reducing the speed limit in the side streets, just, hey, it might help. But like, my whole point of it, and maybe we'll try to get it, on the front burner, is that, my thing was, I don't know if 25 is really the way to go, but 20, but that opens doors, another door for us, because when we do these speed studies, if people are doing 25, everyone's going to be saying, see, they're flying down our street now, and then they're going to want a police officer on the street every day. So there's just so much to this that it's just not an easy answer, and I don't want to make a decision, or have the board make a decision here today that's going to affect such, such a topic. So thank you very much for everyone coming in. Sorry. Okay, item, where are we, Dave? Number 7, request by District B Council Lisa Feltner to restrict one parking space on the west side of Irving Street, north of the driveway of 31 Irving Street. Council Feltner?
Thank you. Yes, I've had several people contact me, and as you know, there's been accidents at this intersection. I've lost track of time. I don't know if it was last year or the year before. It was a pretty serious accident. I think there's been general agreement that we don't want to eliminate all the parking because that might encourage faster speeds, as you've heard. I think Steve Magoon has weighed on that. But given the driveway for the apartment building and Garnett Street, and because of the shape of Irving Street, I was hoping maybe Superintendent Me, and maybe he's already weighed in with this on you, but the geometry of Irving and it being such a high volume road, as well as more and more bicyclists, and it's also a route for Perkins training, and we have several, sorry, just lost my, disabled residents that live there in homes as well as in their own properties. So I'm just bringing to the Traffic Commission to see if maybe if you could eliminate the one spot, because it pretty much ends up, if you park there, you're almost right in front of Garnett Street at that T intersection as well. So thank you very much.
Okay. Sergeant? Sampson?
I don't have anything, Chief.
Anyone have any comments?
On that?
Huh?
No.
Chief, I'm just confused at which space you're referring to based on
It
your
mentions
email.
like Auburn Court in here. I was having the same question. And
I know Auburn Court, it's not really, I think it's not really a street. I think that's the lane into the parking lot for that apartment building
Yeah,
where
'cause
you,
Auburn Court
is directly opposite Garnett.
It's on the
So I think
All right.
there's cars often, or vans and trucks parked towards Mount Auburn on that side just after Garnett. There's room to park there before you, I think probably 2 or 3 spots there's room to park before you hit the next driveway. So I don't know if the length that would be appropriate, but if you could, that particular location tends to block that T intersection and the driveways. And personally, there's been some scary situations that I've been in, as you probably have all seen, because of the home there by Redeemer Church, used to be Phillips Church.
Yeah.
Having to stop, two-way traffic, but it's also marked as the bike path from Arsenal now as well. And so, but a lot of it is just that, having that vehicle, and usually I think there's 2 or 3, but you just can't see. And so
Okay, can't see when you're coming from Garnett? Is that what you're talking about?
From Garnett, and then if you're, because of the curve, if you're coming from Mount Auburn down to Arsenal,
Okay.
you know, the traffic, but then also if you're coming from Arsenal, from Arsenal to Mount Auburn, and the cars are trying to get in and out of Garnett, and there's a vehicle parked there, it's just, there's no room. And so there's gridlock, accidents, sightlines. So wanted to bring it to your all's attention to see, because of that geometry at that T intersection, if it was possible to eliminate a parking spot to keep it more visible for all users, whether you're on the street or sidewalk or in a car or the fire department. It's very
Okay.
tight.
Okay.
Could you show me
Yeah.
on the map where? So there's Garnet.
So, yeah, right in here, this part is where it's they'll park up here.
So what are they complaining about, Lisa?
Well, it basically creates a gridlock in this whole area, and then you've got the van here, so people cross over as well. And so it doesn't look like it's so much aerial, but when you're on the road, that curve it creates a lot of conflict. So even if this spot here was just left open, because you also have, you know, the cars coming in and out of this very large parking lot. So, you know, I would never support eliminating that parking,
Yeah.
because it would encourage the speed, but this spot right here, before the large driveway at that T intersection for the apartment complex.
I just having a hard time conceptualize it
Yeah.
myself, so Garnett, so, Council, right, you're saying this spot right here, right in front of the building?
Yeah,
That,
right
that,
here.
but if the cars park here too, though? I'm
They
just having,
park on the street here, so if you
Okay.
had no parking here,
yep,
then, because this intersection is so tight, congested, and cars are, you know, they're parked up here and then up here, and there's no parking on this side.
yeah,
Which is fine. Traditionally, people don't anyway, because this handicap van's always loading and unloading.
and I'm sorry, I'm guessing, I'm only asking, like, so if this space was eliminated,
Right, then
what
it
does that do? That's what I'm
Well,
asking.
it
When you
basically-
still have the cars behind it, that's all I'm asking, you know?
Right, it just, this becomes like a blocked box, if you will, the congestion here, and you have the bikes trying to share the road, and people already go over, and so you have, you know, cars are going around the cars this way, they're going around the driveway, the van, people coming out here, so you have two-way for this driveway, you have Garnett Street. So I said, well, I'll ask the traffic commission if they can eliminate just one parking spot here. Because you don't, you know, you can't park here or here, but people do park here as well.
Yeah.
So you have parking on all corners, so it's like the whole, so.
Well, you shouldn't be parking on the corners though, right? You have to park so far back from them.
On that corner, yeah.
I know, but this is also handicap home here. You have to load in and out of here all the time.
Yeah.
There's also the ride here, there's a handicap home here, there's one here. So there's lots of loading and unloading in and off the street. And I'm concerned because, you know, we're gonna have, as this fills up, the garage entrances right here at Irving for Gray Star Lawn as well. That's not full yet, and there's no way a fire truck can get down there. Like,
All right.
So, and then, you know, I suppose if this apartment building, you know, parking lot wasn't there.
Yeah.
It maybe wouldn't be a problem, but because this is coming in and out, it's not a signalized intersection. So, you know, I think normally if it was signalized, you wouldn't be able to park here because you'd be too close.
Right.
To I don't know if town engineer.
Okay.
I haven't specifically got any complaints about that intersection
Yeah.
from my people about having a problem turning on or off Garnett.
Yeah, and this is kind of, I mean, I didn't quite fully understand exactly this whole thing, so I'm inclined not to make a decision on this today. Maybe we could table it, and I'll just maybe have the officers at night. Is it a daytime issue or more rush hour issue, or? I just think that, I mean, that street's narrow, so if that's a bike lane going up that street, that's, that's making that street. Yeah, I mean, that whole street is, and we're right back to, this is another issue on another street, and, so I.
Change. I mean, really, this wasn't until this past year.
Yeah. I personally would just like to take a better look at it and take a look at it. Maybe we can just table it to another time.
I move we table it.
Okay. All right. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thanks. Okay, item number 8 is a request by Officer Emily Doss of the Watertown Police Department, who is also our school resource officer at the middle school, to modify the do not enter restriction on Bemis Street eastbound at Westminster Ave. Currently, it's 7 a.m. to 4 p.m., and to change it to 7:30 to 4 p.m. Sergeant Sampson.
Thank you, Chief. Officer Doss couldn't be with us today. However, I am fully aware that we have a crossing guard that's at that intersection of Bemis and Westminster. And to make it easier for the teachers, a couple of years ago, they bumped up the start time for the middle school approximately 50 minutes. So in order to allow the teachers better access to that back parking lot to the middle school, she would like to change that do not enter restriction to 7:30. That'll allow the teachers to get to the back of the school. One other thing, just looking at that, it would be added to our traffic rules and orders, Article 7, Section 26, in the do not enter section of our orders. However, I noticed that all the schools have these do not enters around them. Some have times, others are just straight do not enters. But I think if the Traffic Commission's okay with it, I would like to, we can certainly talk about the middle school today, but I think in the near future, I'd like to bring all the schools forward to the Traffic Commission, get those into the traffic rules and orders where they belong, and then that way we have a record of all those locations.
That's a great idea, Sergeant. Thank you. Any discussion?
Please make the sign big enough. One morning, going to work, driving, I went up Boylston and took a left on Concord Road and was heading down toward the entrance to the Hosmer School, and I said, why are all these cars facing me, coming at me? The sign is this big, and for many years, since I've had a license, I've taken a left and gone down Concord Ave.
Okay.
The sign was so small, I never noticed it, so I think the signs have to be enough so, and it's up on a telephone pole over here. I'm looking down the street, not at the, the pole there, so.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 9 is any new business. Mr. Duff.
I would respectfully request a little more police patrols on the bus lane down by Sacred Heart. Recently, while taking a right into Greg's parking lot, several cars were speeding on the inside lane because it queued up in the left lane where cars are supposed to be, and not paying attention and not realizing that the right lane was for buses. And when you're turning in there, I nearly got T-boned, and my wife would have been killed probably. So if somebody could be there to do a little more enforcement, it's a tough turn into that parking lot.
No, just respectfully, they put those bus lanes with no concentration to us, and when they put them in, I said, guaranteed, the MBTA police won't be out enforcing those, and who's going to get the complaints? The Watertown Police. But duly noted, Mr.
Well, that's
Duff. We'll
because
see
you
what we
have
can do.
such excellent men such
Right,
as
but we don't,
Sergeant
yeah.
Sampson here
So
that
we will
enforce
add-
our
we will-
laws so
We will
well.
add that to Sergeant Sampson's ever-ending list. Thank you.
I bet, yeah.
Chief, if I may on that, in all seriousness, I literally put that back in roll call today.
About the bus,
For the bus lanes going up Walnut School and all the way up at the top of the street, going into Cambridge. So we are looking at that, and I know those lanes are a bit faded, and I believe the DPW is working on getting
I
those repainted as well.
think they just repainted them, because that was part of the problem at night, like 7 or 8 when the sun's down. It was very hard to see, bus only and the arrow and all that, and they're trying to beat the light like everyone in town is trying to do, so they were flying, and like I say, had I turned and not really had a good look, it would have been a serious accident.
Thank you. Counselor?
Thank you. Not new business, but I realize one way that might more clearly explain it from a vehicle perspective on Irving to Garnet, by having the parked car there because it's almost in the intersection of the driveway.
Yep.
You can't get into Garnet without crossing the double yellow because so if it was a four-way, you wouldn't be allowed to park there.
Right.
So that
Okay.
might help explain.
No, and we will take a look at it.
Oh, yeah, I appreciate it.
I'm hesitant making
It just
decisions when I'm
occurred to
not
me.
totally comfortable making decisions.
Just occurred to me, I could have just maybe described it better.
All right, thank you. Any new business? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
All in favor? All right, thank you very much. Take care.